creation of the human being hour by hour. Now we're going to talk about the progressive creation of the world day by day. So what does this mean? On the first day, Yom Rishon, what Shiras Hayam does one say? Just like in Shachris every day, we say after davening, the same song that the Levim were singing in the Beis Hamikdash. And on Sunday, among the a verse that's selected by the Brisa, of course, it's part of the general chapter that we say, and we continue to say this till today. Lashem haaretz umloah tevel v'yoshvei va. Pasuk in Tehillim, as they all are, Hashem's is the earth and its fullness, the inhabited land and those who dwell in it. Now that's the verse. The comment in the Brisa on that verse, and why that's totally fitting for Sunday's Shir Shel Yom, the Brisa comments, Kihu kana v'yakne v'hu yodin es ha'olam. So appropriate because the first day of creation, Hashem, as it were, acquired the universe, and that's what's being said here, and then he gave it to us. It's a variation of a Shemaim Lashem, Shemaim Lashem, Ba'aretz Nosson Livnei Adam. He gave it to the people who live here in this universe. So that's making that very, very clear that this was a divine gift. Right, this is what Art Scroll comments. Based on the Binyan Yehoshua again, the Binyan Yehoshua, it was an interesting figure who lived in the 19th, 20th centuries, mostly in Europe, but actually made his way over to the Golden in Medina and lived out the rest of his life in America. And he wrote what's considered to be a very decisive commentary on our book. He says that no creatures existed on this first day, obviously. In fact, angels also were only created on the second day. So what is really happening? Hashem is, as it were, doing a kinyan, a ma'aseh kinyan, an acquisition of the world in order to pass it on to all future inhabitants. Here it is, it's yours, now do good things with it. That's the statement of the first day. And what a great way to start the week. Okay, roll up our sleeves, let's do good things with this world.
Rabbi?
Yep.
How do you understand, because this idea is consistent with what we say in Shemona Esra, which is V'koineh hakol. Even though everyone says that means he created everything, but that literally translates to he is koineh everything. And I've never quite understood pshat in the idea of Hashem being koineh his own creations. I mean, like what does that mean?
Well, let's look. Everything by Hashem that's given over to us is an anthropomorphism, right? It's something that renders Hashem in human terms. Chazal caution us, we're not supposed to take any of this at face values. The Dibra Torah Koloshim B'nei Adam, an idea we saw in Makos last night, that the Torah speaks in terms that humans can relate to convey an idea. This certainly applies. What it means is that, as it were, Hashem is the creator, the sovereign of the creator and the sovereign of the universe, sees fit to certainly acquire this world that he just created, and then because he's the Koneh, he's completely in control of giving it as he sees fit to his creations. And so we're meant to understand that our possession of this world, it's not like we're interlopers, we're doing anything somehow out of, beyond our reach. No, quite the contrary. Hashem, as it were, the only one who could do this, gave us this world and wants us, invites us to be actively involved in it. That's the meta idea, I think, that's being given. Obviously, it's not literal. The Brisa goes on. It also says, I didn't translate that last bit. Hashem will eventually judge these people, the masters of the world, based on how they use this gift that he gave them on this day. Right? He gave it to us. It's extraordinary. We have a major privilege, but there's strings attached. We better do good things with it, because if we don't, we're in trouble and the world is in trouble. That's the major perspective that we have as we kick off our new week, right? Okay, let's do this now. Let's do good things. Biyom Sheni Ma'omer. What do we say? What's the Shir Shel Yom on the second day of the week? Gadol Hashem umuhulal me'od be'ir Elokeinu. One of the verses in the whole chapter that we read is, "Great is Hashem, much praise in the city of our God." The Brisa comments, "Chilek es kol ma'asav v'na'aseh melech al olamo." Hashem, on the second day, of creation, he separated all of his works and became king over his world. A king, as we relate to the concept, is only a king if he has subjects. You can only have subjects if you've created a bunch of distinct pieces. On the first day, that would be premature, it would be irrelevant. There was one collective world, a lot of massless substance, formless substance that needs to be differentiated. And the second day he's differentiating. It's already time for him to be coronated as the king. And what did he do on the second day? He created the Rakia, the firmament. He divides the upper and the lower parts of creation. He establishes, as it were, the heavenly Beis Din. And then he takes control, as it were, of the world. The chapter of Tehillim that we say on Monday deals with the division on earth, the separation of Yerushalayim and the Beis Hamikdash, each one assuming its relative importance and distinct role. And of course, that Hashem chooses this location, Yerushalayim and the Beis Hamikdash, that he'll have his throne in this world. The third day. I'm moving. If you don't say anything, I'm going to keep moving. Please don't consider my moving along crisply as overriding any comments or questions. Try to feel like this is a large chavrusa, if possible. B'shlishi Ma'u Omer. On the third day, what does he say? On Tuesday, Elokim nitzav ba'das kel b'kerev Elokim yishpot. Hashem stands in the divine assembly, and I really didn't pronounce that right. Bekelov Elohim Yishpot, in the middle of judges, he will judge. Why is this relevant to the third day? This is the day, after all, bara es hayam v'esayabasha. Hashem creates the ocean and the continent, the continental dry land. V'nichpelas eretz limkoma, and the earth, as it were, was folded back to its place. That requires some comment. Initially, everything was underwater. And Hashem, on the third day, will remove he'll create the low-lying seabed and deposited extra soil on the surrounding area, thereby raising the continental level above the sea. So that there's a feeling of, the way the article describes it, the Earth's surface was peeled away from the seabed and folded back in its place on the third day. And that, of course, the place is the dry land. After all, that's where our habitat is. That's where we can function effectively. So that's conveyed in the third chapter. What is the meta idea here? After we have the world given out to us, after we've coronated the Kadosh Baruch Hu as the king on the second day, on the third day now, as it were, the world now emerges in all its earthiness, quite literally, the physicality, and it's time to infuse that physicality with a special spiritual purpose. Rabbi Omer, on the fourth day, Wednesday, what do we say? Shiur Shel Yom, Kel Nekamos Hashem, Kel Nekamos Hophia. This is one, maybe you'll have a clearer reading than I do. I had a little bit of a hesitation on this one, trying to understand it. We read on Wednesday, Hashem is of vengeance. A God of vengeance is Hashem, and the God of vengeance has appeared. Why is that relevant to the fourth day? Well, bara esachama vesalavana vakochavim v'mazalos. After all, we know that Hashem created, actually he had already created them, but he hung up, as it were, in the sky, the sun and the moon and the stars and the constellations, Shem Me'irin Ba'olam, which of course enlightened the world. And are revered as great cosmic forces, and tragically, that's where Avodah Zarah started. As Rambam describes in the very beginning of Hilchos Avodah Zarah, the Dor Shel Enosh, the third generation of humanity, Taus Gedolim made their terrible, crippling mistake. They thought that a way of worshiping Hashem would be, well, that's his divine, that's his heavenly constellation. If we worship those agents, the sun, and the moon, the stars, that's a way of worshiping Hashem. And indeed, they did worship Hashem, at least initially. And it took a little while, but one thing led to the other, and that actually became Avodah Zarah, and the people stopped remembering Hashem, and they just worshipped the luminaries instead. So then, finally, the Breisus says, in the future, Hashem's going to punish anybody who worshiped these forces. So we sing about this on the fourth day. What puzzles me a little bit, of course, is that it's almost like Hashem built in a curse in the fourth day, and that's intrinsic to the day. And we're singing about that for what exactly? You hear my, I don't know if it's a kash exactly, it's something that troubles me. I had a thought, but maybe I'll leave it open. I'll suggest my reconciliation, why that's something we do sing about. Anybody have an idea?
Yeah, what comes to mind is the beginning of Avodah Zarah. Like the guys who are there, talks about, the sun specifically, Hashem removes I forgot the proper term, but makes it extremely hot, and through the sun, proves that the Goyim, even when they had the chance, they still, wouldn't have done the mitzvahs, even after being given second, and it's really like a second chance, although maybe it's a third, I don't know.
So our kavanah when we sing the Shir Shayom should be what?
Should be Days of Mashiach, when when that process happens, and we get a chance to prove that we were loyal, even when we couldn't fulfill the mitzvah, we didn't kick the sukkah on the way out. We left sad.
That's a very reasonable shot. Thank you. Anybody else have an idea?
Just briefly, perhaps. I mean, this might be very, very subjective, but I personally find that Tuesdays and Wednesdays happen to be rather challenging days. Like, they're always the days in which I tend to. I actually do find that, by the way. I'm a very Shabbos-tig guy. Like, the further away I am from Shabbos, like the sadder. Anyway, so I also found a connection with that in the church in Yom Kippur, and I found that very much related to my personal experiences. So I myself use it as a certain meditation. It's like, I guess, be a little bit more careful today. This isn't a day to mess around. This isn't a day in which there's loads and loads of siyat shmaya. So you're going to have to be a little bit more conscious of what you're doing and how you might be using your current resources as they are. It's more, I guess, it's more something that's supposed to cultivate awareness of the different energies that are coming down from upstairs for today. I don't know if it's necessary. I guess the way I'm explaining it's not as much a shira. It's more. I definitely prefer Eitan's explanation, but I'm just adding my own.
Well, it's very thoughtful ideas you're presenting. I'll suggest mine. Mine is simply, Hashem is through through the creation of the universe and through the Shir Shayom that we recite on each day, is setting forth major basic hashkafic points that frame our world and our existence. And perhaps Wednesday was the day for vengeance against the evil forces in the world. All evil forces, after all, go back to Avodah Zarah. That's the second commandment that contains all the negative commandments. Anytime a person violates any of the negative precepts in the Torah, the Gemara says it's as if he's violating the prohibition of Avodah Zarah. And so Wednesday, therefore, is a day of reckoning. As much as we've been very positive, okay, here's the world, let's do good with it. In the first few days, now Wednesday acknowledges there's evil out there, and what how does it come into being? It comes into being through innocent, innocuous kinds of things, like, after all, through Hashem's creation. But then, people, we are easily thrown off, and that's exactly what happened with the stars and the moon and the sun.
Can I add 2 more points? Maybe just for us to consider.
Yeah.
Your Chesed Chaim takes place on Wednesday, right?
Yeah.
So I don't have anything directly correlatory to that, but I just thought maybe someone else might have an idea. But also, the Gemara says that we should get married on Wednesday, right?
No, Tuesday is optimal for marriages because it's Pamayim Kitov.
Oh.
Twice in creation it says Vayar Hashem Kitov, that Hashem saw that it was good. I mean, Wednesday's fine. Don't get me wrong, but Tuesday was called out. Did I just completely torpedo your idea?
Well, I remember some. I mean, I could be wrong, but I remember somewhere. I think it's in Kedushin that speaks about Wednesday. Like you want to get married on Wednesday, so if there's something wrong, then you go to the courts on Thursday. Or am I making that up?
Well, you do go to court on Thursday because that's the that's also Yom HaShuk. It's Gemara and Megillah also.
All right. I guess my points are thrown out, but Birchas Chanas
I'm sorry. Well, your first one was great. How's that? Consolation prize.
Oh, there's
okay.
also one more point, but doesn't directly relate to this. But
okay.
The famous midrash that every kid is told in elementary school about how you have the sun and the moon, they were created equal, and the moon wanted to say, I want to be, the moon
the moon said there's not enough room for two great lights.
Right, and then so because of that, the moon, has a dimmed light. But so I think the Maharal goes more into it, mentions how the moon represents Klal Yisrael because we're not like we're not Hashem. We're simply reflection. We try to be a reflection of what Hashem wants us to be. Or so I'm pretty sure I'm butchering this, but if anyone else can say it better, but I know Rabbi Shushan definitely spoke about this point of that we try to be reflections of what Hashem wants. So maybe in days Mashiach, we'll fulfill that point of maximizing our attainability to be the perfect nation. So maybe that's another thing.
Good.
All right.
Certainly, I mean, it's a drush. It's a drush, and it's a fine drush. On the fifth day of the week, B'chamishi, What do we say? What is Shishol Yom of Yom Chamishi? Harninu lelukim uzenu hariu lelukei Yaakov. Sing joyously to Hashem of our might. Call out to the God of Jacob, of Yaakov. Why is that relevant to Thursday? Because on Thursday, bara ofos v'dogim v'sataninim. He created the bird, the fish, the sea giants. Shehem mirananim ba'olam. They all sing glad songs of praise in the world. This notion that all of Hashem's world cries out one massive symphonic harmony of praise to a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Thursday is the day that's consolidated. That's when, after all of these were created. The comment here, they cite the name of the Ben Abraham, is that all these creations, of course, they're domem. They can't really sing praises. Only man can. But that man, when he observes the great variety and the richness in the creation, will be inspired, and man will want, in looking at all these creations, to praise HaKadosh Baruch Hu in kind. B'shishi ma'u omer, on the sixth day, what does a person say? Hashem malach geus lavesh. Hashem has rules. He wears grand clothes. His levush, his garments, are one of grandeur. Lavesh Hashem oz hisazar. Hashem has worn strength and girded himself, like one puts on a belt. Aftikon tevel baltimot. Even the world of men is firm. It won't stumble. It won't falter. What is that about? The Brisa comments, Gamar is called Maisav. Hashem completes all of his works. V'nis'ala v'yashav b'mromav shalolam. And then, as it were, he ascends to the heaven and sits on his throne in the heights of the world. He's now completed. He's at his maraschino cherry on top. That would be you and me. All of humanity. And now we've really come full circle. Shemaim Lashem v'aretz Nosson livnei Adam. He's given it over to us, as it were. He removes himself only insofar. Don't get Aristotelian on me. He only removes himself insofar as he gives us bichur chofshis. Here it is, up to you, freedom of choice, use it wisely. But he remains involved, Hashgacha Pratis, divine providence, from the beginning to the end. Yeah, well, that's funny. The article's emphasizing that point too. Yeah, that's the 6th day. B'shviyu ma'omer, on the 7th day, that we're going to get a little Kabbalistic now. What does a person say? Mizmor shir liyom Shabbos, a hymn, a song for Shabbos. Yom shekulo Shabbos. This refers to the future days. A day that's entirely Shabbos. She'ein bo achila v'lo shesiya v'lo masa umatan. On such a day, there won't be any eating or drinking and business. It won't really be like our world. When this is a heatedly debated point in the Rishonim. Is it the Mashiach? Is it Olam Haba? But there's some future concept that will not be a physical domain, and that's the ultimate Shabbos, where we will, as it were, supersede any physical limitations. Ela tzedikim yoshvim, vatroseim berosheim v'nizonim miziv hashchina. Rather, and this is Chazal, and we hear this in a few places in the Gemara, the tzedikim, the righteous, will sit with the crowns on their head. Finally, the crowns will come back. Remember, the Jewish people at Nasiv and Ishma got crowns, and they were taken away when they sinned by the golden calf. So now we're going to get crowns back, at least the tzedikim will, being nourished by the radiance of Hashem's presence, of the Shekhinah.
2 questions?
Yeah, but let me first explain it. Don't forget your question, though. Let me just give a little background. The Art School does, and I think it's helpful. They cite most commentators, not everybody. This means that that when the 6 millennia will have run their course, the world as we know it will stop existing. There'll be a void for an entire millennium, and then there'll be a reconstruction at a much higher level. I refer you to the Gemara in Perek Chelik in the last chapter of Sanhedrin, specifically to Tzadi Zayin Amud Aleph for a much fuller discussion of this. What will happen during this 1,000 years? There won't be people in the world. There won't be activities. The tzaddikim will endure. They'll be in a sort of an ephemeral state, floating like angels above the matter. And they'll be nourished by the radiance of the Shekhinah. And this is what's being referred to here. Mizmor Shir Liyom Shabbos, that's this 7th millennium, when all of creation will be restful, in a state of an ultimate Shabbos. So, and this will be a time of complete harmony, complete spirituality. There will be no more wickedness in the world, and there will be pure schar, reward for the righteous in this state. People hear about this. I remember teaching this once, and one of my students said, Rabbi, I have to tell you, this sounds so boring. It was a very funny line, because in our own currently hopelessly physical, you were sneezing, Yitzchak Chaim. Did you hear what the student said? Said, Rabbi, with all due respect, this sounds like a real bore. Could we still play video games? Something, right? It's almost like, Corona quarantine or something. And that's because we're so hopelessly engrossed in the physicality of this world. What would we do without our sports and movies, chas v'shalom, right? That it's hard to imagine a time of spiritual bliss, but that's what it'll be. And that's all reflected in the Shir Yom. Yeah.
Okay, so 2 questions. There are tons of questions, and not just to throw some of them out. I guess you might ask, what on earth is 1,000 years needed for? Why exactly do we need the period of Mashiach in the first place if we're going to go to this exalted state to begin with?
Famous questions, correct?
Yeah. So the question I would want to ask is: Do we know of a clear definition of what would be defined as a tzaddik in this context?
No.
No. So it's
but
like
Hashem
mystery,
does. But Hashem does. That's the good news.
Well, the bad news is I will die and have absolutely no idea where I'm going. It's like...
No, you'll be one of them, I'm certain.
I just have to hope. Amen. I hope so. I hope we all will be. But I'm saying there seriously is no clear-cut definition?
There absolutely is. We're not privy to it. I mean, just because you're learning Torah, Ellie, doesn't mean you're given all the good secrets. Pay your dues first, you know.
Why would that be kept a chayk? Tell me more mitzvahs than averis. Tell me somebody who tries genuinely, fully hard, and really made all the efforts in the world.
No, the problem is our ability to assess. These are the post can speak to this question directly. We are simply and logically incapable of making that assessment, since gauging a person's tzidkus is something that's totally relative. Consider, it's relative to the struggle of Fumtsara Agra. For some people, the tzidkus comes easily, sometimes too easily. That makes them a big tzaddik. I mean, it makes him a tzaddik to become a big tzaddik. What about a guy, a poor schlub, who really has a massive Yetzirah and overcomes it, doesn't quite attain the level of the first guy, but in terms of struggle alone, he's definitely sweat and toiled more. Maybe he should get more reward. Maybe the first guy is on a higher level should get more reward. We're not equipped. We're not qualified to make this call. Only Hashem could do this. Not to mention the myriad big mitzvahs and small mitzvahs, and how do we know how to measure the mitzvahs chamuros and kalos and all of these things. It's such a complicated equation that only one who's written all these things in a book can possibly keep track of this.
Interesting. Just one other thing. Do you happen to think that there is a pattern in the Shiur Shel Yom whereby, Shabbos, Sunday, Thursday, Friday, and Monday all seem to be quite positive, and Tuesday, Wednesday both seem to be quite negative? Is that a pattern that you're seeing as well?
No, I haven't noticed this before learning this brisa. I don't recall this brisa, and I haven't seen this before, but I'm going to now, as I read them in the coming mornings, I'm going to start paying attention. Chazal, when they speak about these things, they had Ruach HaKodesh. They knew something that you and I don't. We should take all these words very seriously. The brisa continues, Shneimar v'yechazu es ha'elokim v'yochlu v'yishtu. The idea that it's possible to derive this kind of life-giving nourishment by drawing close to Hashem's presence, right? In other words, this idea that we're going to be basking and getting nourishment from the Ziva Shechina. Where do we get this idea? There's a precedent. It's in a pasuk in the Torah, in Shmos. It says, I'll translate the verse I just quoted, that they looked at the glory of Hashem, and it was and they ate and they drank. Now, there are different interpretations of this pasuk. A familiar interpretation is that there were certain elders who misbehaved by eating and drinking it at a time that should have been purely spiritual and would later be punished. That's not the view that this brisa is taking. It sees this purely as positive, that what it means is they looked at the glory of Hashem, and it was as if they were eating and drinking. They weren't actually eating and drinking, but rather they were deriving sustenance just by, it was like they're drinking in spirituality. Perhaps like Moshe Rabbeinu, who went without food and water for 40 days, he too could subsist, as it were, on pure spirituality. In our own experience, I don't know if you've had this before, it happens at times, when a person is doing an intense avoda and is totally committed to it, really into it. So then you don't want to eat. You're fine. When the learning is going really well, for example, instead of saying, hey, it's lunchtime. I don't want to go to lunch. I want to continue. I'm in it. I'm in Tosfos right now. The Kotzker Rebbe says there really aren't any fast days. On Tisha B'Av, who has a stomach to eat? And he says on Yom Kippur, who would want to be bothered with eating? Where our whole being is in such a transcendent place that eating is almost, it would be an insult. It would be beyond it. We're getting spiritual sustenance. I always joke that when I announce in the Beis Medrash that I'll be giving a shiur, usually before Mincha, I always say that spiritual refreshments will be served. But that actually, pertains to what we're talking about right here. Powerful brises, all of these. There's a question here. Kol kach lama? Is this much? as it were. Why does Hashem wait so long until the sixth day to create Adam? Why not create Adam? Adam's the focal point of creation. Why not earlier? The answer, so that Adam should be able to enter into Shabbos, into the feast immediately. It's a chesed, so that we get right into Shabbos, gewaldik. Now this has lots of different possible meanings. In the footnote, we point out, this is from the Magen Avos. He says, so that we can immediately get merits by performing the mitzvahs inherent in Shabbos. And the second is that we could actually come into a world that was finished. It was a chesed. Hashem basically set everything up and let us go, right? So,
Rabbi.
Yeah, all this is connected. Yes, Ezra. Nice to hear your voice.
I thought if there's no pain, no gain, if he didn't earn it, then isn't it poor man's bread and whatnot?
Well, I don't think, no pain, no gain, I think usually means lefum tsara agra. Agra is the schar, is the reward. We don't get rewarded here. I think you're right about that. But that doesn't mean that every now and then Hashem doesn't give us a freebie. By which I mean that Hashem, in his own discretion, sometimes just gives us, even if we're not worthy. In my Sefer Malachim Shiur last night, we met such a generation. The 41-year rule of Yeravam ben Yoash, a less-known Yeravam in the northern kingdom near the end, enjoys great success. They broaden the boundaries. There's economic plenty. There's all kinds of good stuff. And for no reason, really, other than Hashem wants to give them all this, wants to make them satisfied, perhaps through the positive treatment, they'll make tshuva. Doesn't work, but that happens too sometimes in history. Hi, Eitan. Eitan, yeah, so, but sometimes, so we're not getting rewarded, you're right. But there's still the sense that that Hashem is, Eitan, that Hashem is, takes care of us anyway. I mean, look, he gives us all this food every day, he gives us all kinds of things. Some of it maybe we deserve, but sometimes he just gives us anyway. Mm-hmm. I want to do a little bit more before we wind up. We're doing Avos Rabbi Nosson, the closest the Chazal come to expounding on Pirkei Avos. The Brisa goes back to the discussion of eating from the Eis Hadas Tov Hara, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Emshol lecha mashal, lemad davar dome. So how do we? What's a good metaphor for all of this? Really interesting. This is talking about the relationship between the first man and woman. You could really darshan this for a long time. I like leaving you with this thought too for tonight, because this should give you some nightmares tonight. Here's what the Brisa suggests: Adam Arishon dome le Adam echad shenaseh sigyoros. Interesting comparison. Adam the first man is compared to a man who married a convert. Okay. And we assume a convert is not going to be so familiar with mitzvahs and halacha, right? And that was true. Chava, we already saw in this brisa, apparently did not know about Hashem's commandment. Adam had to kind of clue her in, had to instruct her. And as we already saw, he didn't do such a great job. Haya Yoshev Mefakta, knowing that she didn't know anything, so he sat down patiently and instructed her. Amarla biti al tochli pas b'shashi adech tmeos. He said, my daughter, which was the term of endearment, they spoke like that in Chazal's days. Don't eat bread when your hands are tameh, are not pure. Right? You should wash them, do netilas yadayim, in other words. He says, va'al tochli peros she'enan musarin. Don't eat produce that hasn't had trumas and maisros taken from them. It's giving you a basic lesson in how to function in life in halacha. He says, al techali shabbosos, don't be machal Shabbos. Val tifritzi b'nedarim, and don't make too many vows. You'll inevitably come to break them. Be careful. Va'al telchi im ish acher. And, we're married now, so that means, sweetheart, don't go on any pleasure walks with another man. Right? It's just you and me from now on, he tells her, which is appropriate. Now, little did he know, but there was another being out there that was wanting to go for a walk with Chava, and we already met him. The Breisus says, remember, the Nachash has designs on Chava. He saw Adam living it up, sipping pina coladas while being served by all of creation. He said, "Ooh, I want that job, and I want to replace Adam. I want him to die, and I want to marry his wife." We saw that previously. So Adam, apparently sensitive to this possibility, warns his novice wife, who's apparently not privy to the knowledge of creation and all the mitzvahs. Ha'im avart alachas mehen harayat mesa. And he warns her, he says, if you transgress any of these things, you're going to die. Which we know is not really true. He's overstating it. Remember, that's how we got into this entire discussion to begin with. You have to make a fence, but you have to be clear and honest. This part is the essential halacha, and this part is an extra chumrah that I added on. Well, he didn't say that. Ma asaha ishahu. What did that other man, well, in this case, the snake, this is the metaphor, do, who wanted indeed to make away with this convert wife? Amad va'achal pas b'fanea b'shashi adav tmeos. He got up, and I imagine, I'm picturing, he's got this malicious smile on his face. He ate bread without washing his hands. Va'achal perus shenem musari. He ate untithed produce. V'chil shabasos. He broke Shabbos. V'faretz b'nedarim, made vows and broke them. Ma amra giora sahiba liba. This uninitiated woman, what did she say? This convert, what did she say in her heart? She saw the emptiness of all her husband's warning. He did all those things and he didn't die. Kol hadvarim shpekadani ba'ali mitchila sheker him. All these commandments that my husband gave me were all one lie. Miyad amda va'avra al kulam. Immediately she got up and transgressed every last one of them. Oy. As a marital therapist here, I think that the two of them, I would give them my card, but it might be a little late for that. They could use some basic communication skills in this relationship. You know, we could certainly understand this on the prosaic level of be very clear when you're communicating, because misunderstandings apparently could abound. On a meta level too, Revolbi in his Kuntras that I love, that I think everybody should learn before he gets married, that he wrote for new grooms, he does say that men and women don't communicate naturally. We speak on one plane of existence, they listen on another plane of existence. Not that either is superior or inferior, they're just different. And therefore you should be very clear in your communication, something that the first man and woman decisively were not. We'll resume this tomorrow. Any questions or thoughts before?
Just briefly, the Mishnah, what is Rabbi learning from the metaphor this Mishnah brings? Like, what is it adding that we didn't know, or what levels of depth do we have here?
Adam's primary mistake was in not giving this deeper consideration and not being totally forthright with the one person that he had to have been. It's a major lesson. We have to be yashar. We have to be honest. We have to be upright with people. And communicate. There's a halacha. Tell them, let them have it. You know, tell them the halacha straight. Don't obfuscate. Don't exaggerate. Don't overstate it. Don't understate it. Present it to them properly.
Okay, but why would I was asking specifically about the extended metaphor, like in terms of the Gioris and everything. What was that adding that we didn't already have?
Well, I'll go back to what I'm saying, and I'm gonna cut the conversation here because you and I can go back and forth a lot. But I think that sets it up in a very poignant way. Of here's a woman through no fault of her own. I mean, she comes out much more innocent here. She just doesn't know, and thereby she was simply instructed inappropriately, and that was really Adam's mistake. I'm going to stay after.
Thank you.
Those of us who learn Makos will resume in 15 minutes.